Hello everyone, my name is Will and I'm a travel photographer, and today I'm going to show you how I turn this photo into this photo using just Lightroom. So the reason why this image is boring is that everything is flat. This photo is kind of dark and everything is about the same brightness, nothing pops out especially, and it doesn't have mood. So for a photo to be interesting or to grab viewers' attention, we need to create mood for your photo. And one of the ways to do that is to create contrast for your image. And by contrast, I didn't mean the contrast slider in the develop panel. What I meant by that was you need to have different brightness in different areas. So when the viewer see the picture, it's not a flat image. You have some part that's bright, some part that's dark, and it creates a more visually interesting photo. And today we're going to achieve that using the local adjustment tools. Okay, so now let's go to the develop module. And first of all, I find this image a little bit too green, so I'm going to adjust the tint. I want it to be a little bit more bluish, so it creates kind of a blue hour sort of look, somewhere like that. And let's see, let's pull down the highlight a little bit. Let's brighten up the shadow, somewhere like that. Let's pump up the whites and darken the shadow just slightly. Okay. Just right now what I find the sky is a bit too bright, so I'm going to use Gradient Filter. So just hold Shift while you drag the Gradient Filter down, so it's going to keep it aligned with the horizon. And let's lower the exposure. Also adjust the temperature, somewhere like that. Okay, and now overall image comes a little bit too blue, so I'm gonna adjust the temperature again. So as you can see, the colors start coming back on the building. Okay, so I think my goal is to keep your attention in the middle of the picture, because that's where the buildings are. So I'm gonna try to force the viewer's attention to stay here by using two gradient filter to darken the top and the bottom of this image. So we did the sky part, and now I'm gonna do the bottom part. So right about there. Let's lower the exposure. So is the temperature. Somewhere like that. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, I think we need to darken the sky a bit, but I'm gonna actually just crop this part out because that's way too bright, it's so distracting. So I'm gonna so let's unlock the aspect ratio, then crop this guy out. I think somewhere from here is pretty nice. Okay, so I'm gonna use the gradient filter again. I'm just gonna make it a bit more narrower, so the transition is more intense. So in case you didn't know, so for a graduated filter in Lightroom, you got 3 lines, and from this part on the very top that's where the effect affect your photo 100%. Below this line, there's completely no effect on your photo. So now that we know that, I'm gonna make this graduated filter a little bit harder, and I'm gonna drag it down here like so. So we can keep viewers' attention in this area. Maybe a bit lower. Okay. So right now you successfully forced the viewer's attention to stay in the middle section of the photo, because we tend to look at the brightest part or the brighter part of a photo. And right now I want to make the building to pop out a little bit more, because right now they're a little bit too dark. So I'm gonna do so by using this Radial Filter. So well, let's invert that first so we can have a better understanding of what I'm doing here. Right, so I'm gonna brighten this part of the photo, and I'll try to just keep that on the building. And apparently right now it's too bright and too yellowish, so I'm just gonna make it a bit not so bright and bring down the temperature somewhere there. And I'm gonna just duplicate. So I'm gonna duplicate this filter and apply it on this side of the building as well. So only this part of the picture was affected by this filter. Like so. I'm gonna put one here as well. Oops. Okay, so let's invert the mask again and bring down the exposure and tune the temperature a little bit towards the colder side. Okay, so right now, once we have created the contrast in the image, it's starting to pop a little bit more. Okay, now I'm gonna make the overall image a little bit darker, because I think it's still a little bit too bright. So I'm gonna bring down that exposure again, somewhere like that. And I'm gonna light up this lights here, and including the boat. Okay, so let's drag a circle as well and invert the mask. Right, so let's make this area really pop. And I'm gonna lower the brightness ever so slightly, somewhere like that. I'm gonna make it a little bit warmer, because that's the nature of that light. And I'm gonna duplicate this and drag it onto the other light. But I'm gonna lower the exposure a little bit, because they're overlapping. Somewhere like that, maybe a little bit of magenta. Same goes for the other one. So I'm gonna duplicate this and drag it onto the boat to make that pop. Like so. And a little bit magenta, a little bit brighter. Okay, so maybe let's keep that a little bit further inside the boat, so it's more realistic. And I'm gonna duplicate that and put that one on the reflection. And also I want to light up this bit, and that bit as well. So let's duplicate that and drag it onto this building here, this light over here. I'm gonna narrow it down so it looks more natural. Somewhere like that. And also this bit here. I'm gonna make it really small and darker. Okay, now let's have a look at the result. Now it's making the image more interesting now, but I want to light up this bit furthermore, and also the dome of the cathedral. So let's put more filter on them. Oops. Let's invert that again. Somewhere like that. And let's lower the exposure and make it a bit cooler. And maybe turn it, maybe adding more magenta in it. Right, let's put it here. And also I'm going to duplicate that and lighten the dome of that cathedral. Okay, but maybe a little bit colder and not as bright. I'm going to duplicate this to the other dome over here. Okay. Maybe, okay, I think I'm gonna add one more over here. Oh, actually, let's just increase the brightness of that part and make it a little bit more wider. Over there and like that. A little bit more magenta. Okay, now let's move down to the Hsl panel. So I want to increase the saturation of the blue here, like that. And I'm gonna change the hue of blue so it's a little bit less green, because I can still see a little bit green in that blue. So I'm gonna put it right about there. And I'm gonna increase the saturation of the yellow and the orange and the red, which is essentially the light, the color of the light. And also a little bit of magenta, because we have a lot of magenta in this photo. So we can really separate the object from each other. And then I'm gonna raise the black point a bit so it's not so chunky. And also I'm gonna push back the shadow slider somewhere like that. Now let's go to the Hsl panel. So I'm gonna brighten up the orange and the yellow, because that's the color of the light. So brighten them will make the photo look more natural. Somewhere like that. And now I'm gonna put a very long and narrow gradient filter in the center. Okay, let's invert the mask first. So we can really emphasize the buildings. All right, oops. We're gonna put it right about there. And of course, we're gonna lower the exposure, make it a little bit cooler. Actually, I'm gonna make it a bit wider. Somewhere like that. And put some magenta back in there because it was a little bit too green. And I'm gonna adjust the feather to make it a bit smoother and more natural. Somewhere there, and lower the exposure a little bit more. Oops. Okay, right about there. Let's have a look. Okay, so I'm gonna, since we just put another filter in the middle, it's kind of darkened this part a bit, so I'm gonna lighten that ever so slightly. Also the boat as well. So make it pops even more. And there as well. And there. Again, I see a little bit green in that light, so I'm going to put more magenta back in. All right. Okay, now I'm going to put a little bit more red. So I'm going to adjust the saturation of those colors a bit more. So right now it's more natural now. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the image by now is almost ready. I'm gonna boost the contrast just a little bit. Somewhere like that. Okay, and that is our final edit. Let's have a look at the before and then after. You can do so by hitting the # key. So before and after. Before, after. So that's how we transform this flat, boring photos into this more interesting photo by just brighten up some part of the photos and darken the rest of them, and using localized adjustments like Radial Filter to force the viewer's attention to stay the area that we want them to stay. Okay, so that's today's video. Let me know what you think in the comment, and if you like this video, please leave a like and share it to your friends. And if you want to see more tutorial in the future, please hit the subscribe button. If you like how I edit my photos, I have Lightroom presets available on my website, link in the description, and I'll see you in the next one.